Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of The Bird Calls. I am your host, David Grubb, alongside Oleh Cosell, and we have just had our first dose of Summer League action. The New Orleans Pelicans' entry in the 2K24 Las Vegas Summer League falls in their opener to the Minnesota Timberwolves, 102-88.
Oleh, David, I like how you put it, a dose.
A dose. A dose. You know, I mean, it's Oleh, first of all, it's good to have basketball back.
Yes, no doubt. We've been wanting to see several of these players that we have an interest in, right? Namely, first of all, Dyson Daniels. Second, Jordan Hawkins, rookie. Just drafted him last month. 14th selection out of UConn, famed shooter, and we'll get into more of what he did, but also EJ Liddell. So three of the players that we want to see, we saw enough things that impressed us. But overall, it was a summer league game, right, David? Right off the get-go. Turnovers and personal fouls. They ended up with, I think, 29 turnovers, 31 personal fouls for the game.
Yeah, you look at this overall, and that's the difference in the game. You know, the Pelicans shot better than Minnesota from the floor overall. They shot even at the from the three-point line. Both teams 25% from three, 7 of 28, so dead even there. Pelicans actually got to the line more often than Minnesota did, made a couple fewer than Minnesota did, and we'll talk about some of those missed free throw opportunities, particularly for Jordan Hawkins, but they were there in all of those areas. But those 29 turnovers, you gave up 15 extra shots to the Timberwolves, and that's the difference in the ballgame.
Really is. They scored 1 point over the final almost 4.5 minutes of the game, in large part due to the turnovers, missed free throws. There was a missed bunny by Darion Sebron, who had a very forgettable game, right? He got right to the rim, just flat out missed it. Some jumpers barely drew iron. So all in all, the offense wasn't cohesive. And even when they got good looks, they just couldn't make anything. So, yeah, David, that's kind of the big takeaway. You know what? If for people that aren't familiar with Summer League, this is typical, right? I've been to plenty of Summer Leagues in person. It's just not good basketball. For the main reason, you've got a bunch of guys that have never played basketball together before, but they're also trying to play at an NBA pace and level when they're not quite that top 100, I should say top 450 players in the league, right? There may be one or two on rosters, maybe 3 or 4 at the most, but the rest of the guys, yeah, you can kind of see the different in skills, say, compared to just a regular season game.
Yeah, you talk about this group in particular. You have 4 guys who are back for their second tour of duty in Summer League in one way or another, in Liddell, Sebron, Dyson Daniels, and Carlo Makovich. And then you have Jordan Hawkins, your first-round draft pick in that starting lineup. As you said, I think 3 out of those 5 players in that starting lineup did what you wanted to see today. Let's start with the most high-profile returnee in Dyson Daniels. What did you like about his game today, and what did you what did you not like?
What I wanted to see him was dominate, at least in some of his minutes, and he did that in the third quarter, where I think he scored. I want to say it was 8 or 10 of his points. Right, he finished with 18, but he also dominated in the sense that he's not going to go out there, right, shoot 20 times, make 10, get you 30 points. Now, how he dominates is defensively, using his physicality, using his dribble and drive, that aggressiveness that we saw early last season, which vanished for a large part of the regular season. But that's what makes him special, right? He pushes the pace after getting a rebound, or he uses his strength to get through, defenders. We saw a couple of nice spins, I know, by him to finish at the rim. So I like the fact that he kind of resembled the player we first saw put on a Pelicans uniform, right? Confident, aggressive, attacking. On the flip side, David, I feel like, and I should mention one other thing. He did get to the free throw line 8 times. I don't know if anybody knows this, but the most times he got to the free throw line a year ago was 3. So I noted that in my notes as I'm looking here now. But overall, I think the things that he could stand to improve on, right, is he was tasked with leading, right, this group that was terrible, especially down the stretch offensively. And I don't feel like he really led them like you would expect or hoped by a real floor general. So just shows that he's got more improvement on that end for sure.
Yeah, it felt like he was trying to play 2 roles at the same time, both be the point guard and be aggressive scoring, because we saw how he started the game getting a steal on the opening possession, finishing at the rim. It felt like the first couple of possessions he was looking for points for himself, not to set up other people. And I believe that was by design. I think they're trying to get Dyson to be more aggressive and a little bit more selfish offensively. The other thing I really liked is that he used his footwork in the paint. We saw him post up. We saw him shoot a fadeaway. We saw him shoot a hook, a baby hook in the lane. I thought that
I forgot about that one.
Length at 6'8" in a way that we had not seen him really use it before. He did finish one dunk with two hands on and got the 3-point play out of that. But there was another one again where we saw that kind of last year thing where he got caught in between. He had he either could have taken a wide open three at the top of the key, or he could have finished, I thought, with a dunk at the rim. And instead he laid it up, it rolls off the rim, and the ball's going the other way. But overall with Dyson, his level of aggression, the defense is still there. He had 4 steals and a block in this game. We know his defense is not going anywhere, but I think it was a good step forward for Dyson in his first game back.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add to that other than I'm glad he actually attempted 4 3-pointers. Could have had more, like you just mentioned, but he didn't hit a single one. But I will say that, again, I think his form looks better. He looks more relaxed shooting the ball, not as mechanical. So I think if he just stays patient with it, kind of like Herb Jones did throughout the course of the last regular season, where he finally caught fire over the final 6 weeks, it's going to come to him. And I think he's going to end up a better 3-point shooter because I just like his mechanics, on that shot, his feel. That's where Herb still looks a little bit more mechanical. I think Dyson shows more feel on his shot now. Now, granted, we'll have to wait and see because he did have an air ball from the free throw line, but he did make 6 of 8. So it's a mixed bag shooting wise, but I think he is trending in the right direction. So you can't just look at the results.
Like same with Jordan Hawkins, not the most efficient shooting night in his debut, but at the same time, all of the things that were advertised about his skill set were on display. Steve Smith, who's doing the color commentary on that game, a shooter, a guy who's made it well over 1,000 3-pointers in the NBA during his career, said shooters recognize shooters. And he liked everything he saw about Jordan Hawkins' form, the way his feet were set, the way how quick his release was. And we saw all of that. And then we also saw some great recognition with him with the ball, being able to put it on the deck, finish a reverse layup in the first half, and then a Euro in the second that looked really good on a bad closeout from the Timberwolves defensively.
He's a more complete basketball player in terms of his understanding and execution than he's given credit for. I mean, he's largely only been known as a shooter, right? That's all anybody, when they mention Hawkins, talks about. And you saw that, right? A couple of his shots that he nailed were so buttery, David, to where he had a long mid-range shot that got nothing but the net, and there was a 3 too. But aside from that, I really liked his decisions on when to drive. There was a couple of hard closeouts on him, and he did the right thing. And not only did he finish, but he evaded other defenders that came to help rather easily. Right. So these aren't NBA quality defenders, right? Again, we're talking about summer league, but I thought he looked slippery enough to where I've got hope that he's going to be able to incorporate some dribble and drive as soon as maybe his rookie season. Unlike who I compared in our group chat to, Buddy Hield. I remember my first summer league game was Buddy Hield's first summer league game, and he couldn't, take anybody off the dribble. His game came against the Lakers, and when he did finally get kind of in the rim, to the rim or in the lane, he was blocked by Zubac. So Buddy showed absolutely nothing, as to where Jordan Hawkins to me showed a lot more. And then you already mentioned, David, he's a smart basketball player, and you saw that with the 5 assists. He was also in the right place to pick up those 2 early in the game steals, right? So you can see how he's going to be able to contribute in other parts.
And he also had a block too. So, I mean, a little bit, again, contributing a little bit of everything. That's what you want to see. His confidence didn't waver when he missed shots. He continued to put the ball up, and his form is really good. I mean, I'm just repeatable. And as you said, the shooting on the movement, there was that 3 that he hit from the top, and he was coming off a movement. His feet were spread a little bit, like it was a bit of a kick when he let it go, but everything from waist up, perfect form. And so that's something you can't teach, that repeatable, quiet shooting motion.
Yeah, and I hope a lot of people just watched him exclusively on offense, where he really doesn't stand still. And he lost his defender so easily that by the time he's on the other side of the court, his defender's still probably, I don't know, I would say like 40, 50 feet away. So there was a lot of opportunities for open shots. Unfortunately, there was either a turnover or a moving screen, something that honestly took away, I think, potential points from him. But I'm telling you what, I was just in awe. That movement came so easy to him. He always found the right seam. And even on drives, you could say he found the right seams to attack. So I really like how he thinks the games or it thinks the game because he doesn't seem like he's a guy that's going to try and do too much out there. I know he finished with 4 turnovers, but for the longest time, that was really under control.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, David, I've got hope that we're legitimately going to have at least a rotation caliber player with that 14th pick.
And some of those turnovers, it's a communication thing of guys just not, there were bad turnovers, and we'll get to the most egregious committer of those turnovers in just a second. But I think overall, he looked stronger than people give him credit for. Saying he does need to gain weight, that's clear, but he's not frail.
No, offensively, I didn't see strength being as much of an issue as I did defensively. And I feel like I noticed it right off the bat. He was a little bit slow in trailing. I forgot who he was guarding, but whoever he was guarding just made the simplest of cuts, didn't even move that quickly, but got by him quickly, lost him on kind of a half-hearted screen by another player for Minnesota. And really, it was basically a defensive effort that would have gotten you thrown on the bench immediately by an NBA head coach, right? So it wasn't just that instance, too. There were some others where, like I said, the strength wasn't there. When, like, for instance, I do remember a switch in the second half. We had a guard, I think, what was his name? He was having a good first half. Minot, I think.
Minot, yeah.
Yeah, and he just simply, couple dribbles into Hawkins' chest, raised over him, missed, but then got his offensive putback easily because Jordan, by the time, he saw that the ball was coming off the rim, he didn't get back into the play and quickly enough, didn't try and box out, one of those things. So he's got some things to learn, get a little bit stronger, especially, like I said, he's going to need to on the defensive end, especially when the switches come. But hey, I think it's a promising first summer league game for him.
Let's look at EJ Liddell, another guy that everybody's excited to see, especially with not a lot of additions being made to the Pelicans front court so far during the offseason. You expect that he's going and him signing that guaranteed deal now that he'll be on the main roster this season. Shot at 4 for 6 from the floor, made some good decisions, I thought, played some solid defense, rebounded the ball, got a block as well. Very active player, very intelligent player. The only thing I think you worry about is he going to be able to get his shot off against bigger players in the when you play against regular NBA front lines?
Yeah, I think that's probably a legitimate concern. But I will say today, I thought he played fully within himself, like a guy that hadn't played right in over a year or close to a year. And it showed to me that he had 0 turnovers. He didn't try and do anything that was really not within his scope of ability, other than take that was a 3-pointer last 2 minutes over somebody a little bit taller that was coming right for him. But I exclude that because everything else was sound, right? His drives, he got a way to get a shot off, whether he contoured his body, kind of slowed down, almost a half euro on another one. I like what he did there. But again, David, I liked his lateral movement too, but I think he's going to need some time just playing regular basketball, running up and down the court for a couple more months before he really trusts his legs. Because I thought I noticed it when he's either going for rebounds, he's not really getting up in the air. When he would get a rebound, had some open space to dribble. He may have done like a couple of dribbles, right? But he didn't really look to bring the ball up the court. So it was just those instances where you feel like he was just trying to get a feel for what it's like to go up and down in a real game again.
Yeah, get some confidence in his body again in real action. But we've seen him in practice, and we know what he's capable of as far as physically. It's just going to take some time for him to, I think, get that confidence back in his body in game situations. But mentally, you can see why he was an all Big Ten first team defensive player, why it was such a shock that he was available in the second round at all, considering the accolades that he earned in college. Let's switch over to the other 2 starters, because I think we kind of need to group them together.
Yeah.
And Makovich and Seabron, neither one of them had a game you want to write home about. Not in any real way. They did, like, there was nothing that made you feel for Seabron that he's capable of really being an effective scorer. He didn't take good shots. He didn't make shots. He had a lot of turnovers, lapses defensively. So it's kind of hard right now, unless he improves dramatically over these next few games, to see a place for him. And Makovich, the Pelicans have already said that their intent is to leave him overseas. He clearly needs that time.
Yeah, that's the easy one. So we'll talk about Matkovic first. And you're right. On the broadcast, it said that Trajan Langdon said he could conceivably stay for another 2 years in Europe. And he sure looked like he needs to. Because as soon as the ball was tipped, the first few minutes, you saw him, picking up, moving charges. I think he had 3 fouls in the first maybe 5 minutes of the game or something like that, David. And
He
then
had
on the
five in the first quarter.
yeah, so and also he wasn't really giving you anything. I know he had an early bucket, but that's because the play broke down. Dyson almost had a turnover, saved it, and then found Matkovic sitting under the rim by himself. But other than that, I didn't really see him dominate the glass, really dissuade Minnesota from scoring in there. His switching was very slow, right, in terms of his rotations. There's just so much that he still has to learn, I feel like, about the NBA game. I did like one turnaround, or what was it, a long two from the kind of the baseline he hit. So I think we saw why maybe the Pelicans have hope for him, right? His shot looks nice. I think legitimately his shot looks nice, but boy, he's really got to just work on those fundamentals and just the understanding of an NBA game.
As far as
Oh, I'm sorry. And then, yeah, let me talk about Seabrook real quick. I saw that he was a willing rebounder, so I like that. He also got to the free throw line and made all 8 of his 8 free throw attempts. But yeah, David, I hate probably the biggest thing that bothered me the most next to and maybe coincided with the 7 turnovers was the fact he didn't exhibit any of that 0.5 mentality that you would have thought he might have been learning over his, last year while on that 2-way contract. So it kind of bothered me that he dribbled basically the air out of the ball, especially coming down the stretch and trying to make something happen. That's just not something we're used to seeing, right? Out of anybody on the Pelicans, not named, Brandon Ingram, CJ, or Zion. Even then, they make quicker decisions, right? So that probably bothered me the most, right? I know that you see the 7 turnovers, and yeah, there are some really bad ones. Like early in the game, he had EJ Liddell, and there was a transition opportunity, threw it behind him. Then there are some other bad passes, including one down the stretch where he couldn't even throw it over the defense. It was intercepted easily. So that bothered me. So it makes me wonder, was it kind of butterflies for him? I'm not sure, but you're right. He's going to have to bounce back in a big way over the remainder, a good portion of the remainder of the schedule.
In the second unit, the one guy who I think stood out was Landers Nolley II. And you and I both talked about him, after the draft and saying that we thought that was an underrated pickup, a guy that has a singular skill at the very least. He can shoot the basketball, and he showed that. He goes 4 for 4 from the field, 2 for 2 from 3. He put the ball on the ground and pulled up for a shot on the baseline in a very smooth move, looked very confident, and again, didn't do things that were out of his character. He made smart plays, and those are the things, if you're trying to get a 2-way deal or hang around for a while, he did all of the things, I think, coming off the bench that you do to get noticed.
Yeah, against at least summer league competition, he looked like a certifiable role player to me. You mentioned the shooting. I liked that he was ready waiting for the ball on catches. I know one of the threes hit was in the right far corner, and he was ready for the shot. So even though it looked like a difficult shot, almost kind of I think his face was close to being behind the backboard, nailed it with ease. And yeah, it showed that he was a 5-year guy, right, in college, because he completely played within himself, and I love that. I also like that defensively, he made some things happen, right? A steal, a block, and like people were saying that watched him in, like, say, the the G League elite camp, stuff like that, that his defense was getting noticeably better over the course of this last calendar year. So that's promising, because I know that, yes, shooting the ball is probably the biggest thing you can do, but man, to get on the NBA floor right now, as we've seen, right? That's why Philadelphia gave up on, say, Thibault, and there's been other examples in the league. You got to be able to do things on both ends of the court. So for Landers, offensively shooting the ball, he's going to make the open jumper, probably make the right decision too. But defensively, you want to see it. And I kind of saw a little bit today, right? He wasn't overwhelmed, unlike some other of his teammates.
The pace was he never let the game change his pace. And I thought that's that experience. And he also looks like he's been in the weight room. Like, he looks bigger than he did when I saw him up close and personal in college. He looks a little bit bigger and stronger than he did the last time I saw him play.
Yeah, look, the Pelicans have, as we understand it, two-way contracts available, right? Just handed DJ Liddell a full NBA standard contract. Sebron still has one of the two ways, but this year NBA teams are moving to three. I'm wondering if Nolley, say he can keep up this kind of play, and with his shooting being as good as maybe as advertised, and for the Pelicans team that really needs more shooters, right? Maybe taking a chance on him. We might have seen the first game in that step for him on possibly landing one of those two ways.
Especially that second 3-pointer where he's guarded the man right in his face. There's no rhythm to it. It wasn't a catch and shoot. He's having to decide, and he flat foots that. He doesn't pull up. He flat foots, flicks the wrist, nothing but net. I mean, that's a shooter's shot.
That was yeah, David. I was kind of surprised by that shot because in my head I'm thinking that's a bad shot, right? You probably thought the same thing, but no. Apparently he's taken, and I saw enough of him in Cincinnati where he honestly took a lot of difficult shots, right? And I think I remember telling you this, or at least maybe on one of these interviews we've done or something along those lines, to where he seems to make a majority that you wouldn't expect of those difficult off balance shots, right? So the ones that you're screaming, no, 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 when in fact, I think he's worked on it so much, it's not a bad shot for him.
He was exceptionally calm in that moment. He was just like, he's sizing his man up. And when he felt like he said, oh, I've got enough space, and he let it go. Overall, again, when we look at Summer League, I think you and I view it as the same way. You're not looking at the final score too often. What you're really looking for is consistent effort, defensive intensity. Do the players communicate with each other? And is there a sense of purpose in what they're doing? I think overall, outside of those 29 turnovers, which you hope they can cut that down. And I think it was 13 of those came in the first quarter. I think it was 13 turnovers in the first quarter.
I think it was 9, David. I'd written it down.
9 in the first quarter. You're right. 9 in the first quarter.
15 at half. Yeah.
No, so it was just, and in the third quarter, they were actually pretty good at not turning the ball over as they took a lead. But then the fourth quarter it fell apart again. So there's not really a point guard on this team. You hope Dyson Daniels figures some of that out, and maybe they'll put him in more sets as we go forward. But I think that will be, what I'm looking for. Because for Jordan Hawkins, his game plan doesn't change, I think, over the next few games. For EJ Liddell, it doesn't really change. He's got his contract. Can you just keep doing your dirty work and stay healthy? The guy who has the most to gain here is Dyson Daniels.
It is. And I want to see both he and Sebron play better off of each other, right? I felt like they were butting heads to where when they flipped the ball to each other, there was no advantage, right? All of a sudden you're hitting some guy on a move to the rim, or having a sequence to where all of a sudden it gets you into a quick offense, right? All of a sudden it's a pass, boom, easier shot. So the fact that they both kind of combo guards and neither one seemed to, get the offense moving in a good direction was a problem for me, because I know that's what Casey Hill wants to see, right? He legitimately wants to see, and I think this probably goes back to the entire coaching staff, right? That was a plan from Willie Green on down to let's put the ball in their hands and see what they can do, because let's face it, that's the way we play, right? That's the way the Pelicans, C.J. McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Zion, to where they play kind of quick hitters. Everybody takes a turn running the offense. So if Sebron hopes to ever see any minutes, he's got to kind of adapt to that. And for Dyson, he's got to become better at it.
I'm thinking it's going to be a pretty intense practice tomorrow. And I'm guessing turnovers would be the number one thing that this team works on. And for Jordan Hawkins, look, the kid goes 1 for 6 from the free throw line. I'm not expecting that to happen again.
Never in his career, I bet.
No, I think that shows you first time putting on an NBA uniform, there's nerves. I mean, for anybody, no matter what the environment is, it's an NBA environment, that it feels like you're now there. It's not 20,000 like it was at UConn. It's not the Final Four, but it's the NBA, and the pressure's different. The look is different. And I think it shows up at places like the free throw line.
Yeah, and we should mention that a lot of those misses came when he took a hard fall to the ground, right? I remember he was rubbing his knee. The broadcasting team mentioned a few times that, hey, I think he might have hurt himself because he's really favoring the knee, right? And that's where I think he had probably 4 of those misses. So, yeah, we could maybe write it off to that too.
Yeah. Pelicans back in action on Sunday. Like I said, practice tomorrow. That'll probably be very heavy. But again, what we're looking for is progress, not necessarily wins and losses. The Pelicans have used Summer League, and we talked about this with Antonio Daniels. You can check that episode of the Bird Calls out. We've used Summer League very well the last 2 seasons. And from what I saw today, I'm encouraged by game 1.
Oh, I am too. Like I said, I want to see positives out of EJ, Dice, and of course Jordan. And we saw all 3. And it was kind of almost a bonus, right, to get something out of Nolley. So, yeah.
All right, until the next time, he's Oleh Cosell, I'm David Grubb, and this has been The Bird Talk.